Hello and welcome to Cracked Open, a podcast guiding you on your journey to becoming a vessel of unconditional love. And this is your host, Beck Milonis, High Priestess, Channel, and Activator. Join me on this series as I share reflections, insights, and channel transmissions from my journey of walking the initiation path. Each episode is a unique transmission containing supportive frequencies to facilitate the deepest healing, activation, and reconnection with your soul. I invite you to open your mind and set the intention to receive this episode into your heart space. Let's go. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of I feel like I forgot why I was here for a second. Another episode of Cracked Open, a podcast guiding you to becoming a vessel of unconditional love. Today with me, I have Jack Morrigan. Jack is a soul brother of mine who we connected wildly through the internet, as it does connect people, and had the pleasure of supporting each other through moving through some things. And Jack's just such a beautiful presence, beautiful energy. And he holds some really interesting polarities within his field. So I'm excited to introduce him. Welcome, Jack. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much, Beck. I remember when we were connecting, was it a year ago? Was it? I feel like it might have even been longer than that. I'm not quite 100% sure.
About a year. Mm-hmm. Wow.
And it always felt like this was on the cards at some point, us to be having a recorded conversation and share it with the audience. So I'm really happy to be here.
Amazing. Cool. So to officially introduce Jack, Jack is a spiritual healer, a guide, a channel who supports you to heal from the past and awaken into your divine potential. He's the founder of My Rising Rose Sanctuary of Divine Healing, which runs group and one-to-one services. I think, before we got onto this conversation, we were having a bit of a drop in about what is present. I came on here in like the foulest fucking mood ever because I'm feeling very triggered today. And Jack was just kind of like in this light masculine energy, which is really funny because it just broke me immediately. Like it broke the wall. So we're definitely going to talk about some of the energies going on right now. I know Jack said he's been feeling it too. But to begin with, before we get stuck into that, we also probably going to talk about divine union and just whatever comes through because we're both channelers. I would love to ask and for you to share with the audience how you got started on this mission to come to where you are, working with all these beings that you work with and serving in the way that you serve. What a loaded question that is.
No, it's all good. I'm laughing because it's such a crazy story. And it's one I've told many times now. Funnily enough, when it all started to happen, my guides were telling me, you need to remember what's happening here because you're going to have to tell this to people at some point. But yeah, so I had a difficult childhood, a lot of trauma, intergenerational trauma. My parents did the best they could with what they were given, but how it is, the trauma gets passed on. And then, so I experienced quite a lot of violence and emotional abuse and neglect. Did well at school, knew that I wanted to help people. So I started studying medicine, wanted to be a psychiatrist. Didn't really understand what a psychiatrist was. They prescribed drugs and not doing talk therapy. So then I failed my medical degree, changed to psychology. During all this time, I was atheist. And it was after I completed my psychology degree and I was doing psychological research that someone suggested that I check out Eckhart Tolle, bearing in mind that I didn't have any interest in meditation or spiritual practice or anything. Watched one of his videos and had a mystical experience straight away where it looked like he was glowing and everything else around him just seemed to disappear. And my mind was just absorbed in this image of this softly spoken, glowing guy. Then I had an experience just after that where all the thoughts in my mind stopped. And the same light that I'd seen shining out of him, I could now see shining out of everything in my room. Went on like that for about, obviously, that was a big deal. I'm kind of skipping past it now, but that was probably the most significant day of my life. But then about 6 months later, I was following the teachings of Ramana Maharshi and I had a Kundalini awakening while I was sleeping. So I was in a lucid dream, met a teacher, and that teacher was giving me a spiritual lesson. And when I realized what he was talking about, it triggered a Kundalini awakening, which was like a near-death experience. So I was in a tunnel of darkness. There was a point of light in the distance. It started getting bigger. The bigger it got, the more I felt existential dread. Like I was literally, something fundamental within me was dying. And but there was also like this ecstatic, orgasmic bliss. I eventually crossed over into the light. It was just this ocean of orgasmic energy. There was no fear there. And then eventually came back into my body, and there was lightning-like energy moving up and down my spine with the feeling of an orgasm. I didn't even know anything about Kundalini at the time. It was only afterwards that I read up about it and realized that was what happened to me. But it's like it turned up the dimmer switch on my consciousness by doing that. And I just started having spontaneous out-of-body experiences afterwards. So I traveled to these different realms of existence, meet angels, meet deities, formed connections with them that carried over into my everyday life. So I'd be walking down the street and be able to telepathically communicate with them. Obviously, bearing in mind my background, that was quite a shock to my system. And it took at least 7 years to really integrate that to the point where, you know, the person that you're seeing in front of you now is here, like someone who's grounded. All of that stuff is still open. But now I can actually function. Like, and I went 2.5 years, I think, without working. The first year of that, I was in bed most of the time and like waking up in the night with nightmares, like because my psyche was clearing out all the traumas that were there. Yeah, so it's been intense, but the upside is that now I have this open channel to all of these beings. And you mentioned the dragons. I work with a group of dragons called the Dragons of the Rising Rose. And now I can serve as a bridge between these different levels of consciousness, which is what I was always supposed to do. And it's just taken quite a lot of work to get to this point.
Thank you. A few things. Firstly, I'm having a full-on fucking psychedelic experience over here. I just need to speak into that. Like, I'm so hooked into, I don't know, it's in your eyes or something. Like, it's like this vortex and like everything's fucking warping. So I just want to speak into that because I think you have very intense energy. And this is for the viewers. Like, it's very like, it gets you into a trance state. I'm also going through a lot of energetic shifting and purging at the moment. So it could be that, but my field is just like, whoa. But it does feel like an altered state of consciousness is coming through, and just how you speak and like just your energy. So I'm just speaking into that firstly. Secondly, I'm curious what sorts of things you did when you're in this kind of collapse, or like when this all opened up and it was all very overwhelming, to start to bring yourself back. Because I had a similar experience, and I think a lot of people do, where it's just all too much too soon when there are these channels. And what sorts of things were you doing to come back into your body and come back to being grounded?
Yeah, that's great questions. Yeah, and just to speak to that point, yeah, I am intense. Like I'm intense just generally. So I have a stellium in Scorpio for the people who follow astrology. So I got,
Well, that makes sense.
yeah, Sun, Mercury, Venus, Pluto, and midheaven, all in Scorpio. A few planets in
Damn.
conjunction.
It's a
Yeah,
lot
so
of
it's
Scorpio.
intense. It's intense with all the ups and downs that come with that. And then that's obviously magnified now because of the dragon energy. I'm kind of veering off topic a little. Well, I'm on topic, but kind of veering off a little bit. But the dragons, the more I channel them and the more connected with them I become, the more present their energy is within my field. Just generally, like I feel like I am becoming them. But you were just to bring it back, you were asking about how did I ground during that time. There were some things that were just incredibly helpful. So you know, the challenging side of having opened up like that is that things can be very unstable and very weird, like lots of very weird sensations and experiences that are difficult to deal with when you don't have a context for it and there aren't people around you that you can talk to about it. Thankfully, though, because of the opening, I had connections to all these spiritual beings who were incredibly supportive. And I'd be lying in my bed, just like completely overwhelmed and not sure what to do. And, you know, I'm staying at my mum's house, you know, and I'm like, how old was I? By 28, something like that, you know, and it's like, this is really demoralizing. Like, I feel like a failure. I was going to be a doctor, you know, that's what was going through my mind. Like, I've fucked it all up. But then they would come in and they'd be like, first of all, they'd use a lot of humor and just like joke with me. And then they would explain things. So one time they showed me this vision of like a really old office from like the 1970s. And they were like, look at the carpet. Isn't it outdated? Look at the computer. Isn't that crazy? Like, you need an upgrade. And this is you. And we're going to upgrade it for you, right? We're going to rip up the carpets. We're going to take up the floorboards. We're going to smash the computer. We're going to do this. We're going to do that, right? And it's going to be really disruptive. And you aren't allowed to leave this office. You have to stay here. But once we've got through all of this difficult work, then we're going to start putting in nice new carpets. We'll put a nice new computer down for you. You'll be nicely upgraded. It's going to be all good. So they were hugely supportive, like sharing that. But I also had my spiritual teacher, Fran, and she helped me a lot with staying grounded, especially with spiritual ego stuff. You know, where I was trying to kind of compensate for what was happening by going, oh, okay, well, maybe actually I'm amazing. You know, maybe I'm way better than everybody else. And she helped me ground from that by telling me things that I really didn't want to hear. Like, instead of telling me like, yeah, the second coming, she was like, you need to be in therapy, which was a massive punch in the gut for me at the time, because like I'd never been in therapy and I thought I was kind of above it. But it was exactly what I needed. So she was amazing, but just like walking in nature, listening to music, taking it really slow and trusting that you're in a process that has an end point, and that actually your life will be far, far better afterwards.
Interesting. I actually personally don't think that there is an endpoint, because I think evolution and expansion is never ending. So I don't think that there's an endpoint. I think it gets easier the more you understand the process. But personally, I don't actually think that there is an endpoint. I think we're constantly evolving and growing. And if not, then why are we here? You know, that's my perception of that. It's interesting what you said about the ego and her bringing you back into that. Yes, you are just fucking nuts and go see a psychologist or whatever it is. Like, I think we need that, like, other perspective while we're going through an awakening, because otherwise, you're right, we do get this big head. We think we're the second coming. We think we're so potent. For me personally, my guides were the ones always kind of like checking me and myself. I'm very good at checking myself. I have that gift of self-awareness to be always questioning, am I fucking crazy? Right? So it's an internal thing for me, but it's so important to have people reflecting back to us the humanity and our humanness, and to look at things from all angles so we don't get carried away. To change gears for a second, we was kind of speaking into the energies like at the moment, and you had a kind of grip on what was going on and what people might be experiencing right now. It's a lot of intense, it feels like Mars, you said Pluto, there's lots of like fiery energy going on at the moment. So what's your feel on that, and why do you think this is all coming up? I personally feel like it's we're clearing a lot of masculine shit and stepping into a higher expression of masculine or divine masculine energy. But for you, what's your read on it, and what do you think is going on energetically?
Yeah, I was just having a conversation with two people I'm close to here in Berlin just about this exact topic. And one of them is an astrologer, and she was talking about, you know, how we're in Pluto conjunct Mars and Venus at the time that we're recording this. And she was talking about cleansing, like how we're cleansing out at the moment. And it really fit with me and our other friends' perspective, because we'd both been experiencing, or we'd all been experiencing, like this resurgence of old patterns, like anxieties that I felt like I'd done a lot of work on and had mostly gone, suddenly coming back like a rocket, and being really intense, and then being given the opportunity to notice, like, oh, hang on, I'm the one creating this, like I'm still doing this. This is still inside of me, and then letting go of it, and then having these moments of beautiful clarity where it's like, wow, I feel more peaceful and clear than I felt in ages. And then with seemingly without warning, plummeting back into it, and just being up and down like that. And just weird stuff happening as well. Like I organized my first in-person event here in Berlin. Amazing. And no one came.
Like, not amazing. No it's like amazing, not amazing. Oh, it's a whirlwind.
And I'm there and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go, feeling really good. No one shows up. And two of my friends come like right near the end. And then it's like, no one's here. Okay, we're just gonna have to go. And then just feeling the humiliation of that and the sense of failure within it. And then also feeling like, hang on, I'm being tested. Like this is a test. Can my ego handle this? And trying to move through that. So it just feels like this kind of transformative cleansing time. But I'm curious what you've been feeling about the masculine in that.
Yeah, I mean, a few different astrology kind of people that I follow and listen to are speaking into like it's a cleansing and an up-leveling of the masculine, because Mars is warrior and it's like forward momentum. It's also like very masculine, action-oriented energy. We're moving into Aries soon as well, which is that's the house, or like the house of the divine masculine, not the house, the sign of the divine masculine. Like it's the first sign of the, fuck me, I can't even speak today. The astrological element charts, signs. Oh my God. So we're moving into that soon. Obviously, we're still in Pisces because I'm a Pisces and it's my birthday in a few days, but we'll be moving into that. And what I feel is that there's a lot of our inner masculine stuff coming up. So where we are pushing, where we're still in wounded masculine ways of being, behaviors. So like for me, wounded masculine is like power struggle. So Pluto is also about power. So there's lots coming up around power struggle, where we're giving our power away, but where we're being overly dominant, like pushing people into things, pushing ourselves in terms of like how we take action. So where we're taking too much action and that action's not in alignment. For me, I've also seen it all the ways in which I've been hard on myself. So like the overdoing quality is being kind of like really like, hey, look at this so you can not be like that, because the masculine is about action. It's about grounded action, but it's not action out of alignment. Like it's not action just for the sake of action. So I think that's coming up. We're definitely looking at power struggles like on a greater stage. I feel like there's lots of war energy present. I don't know why, but that feels like very present in the collective, and agitation around disempowerment to do with that. For me, there's this undercurrent of frustration. And that's on a personal level for me. Lots of solar plexus stuff is coming up, agitation, frustration. I want to fucking smash someone. Like it's just anger. It's very fiery energy, which is when you have all these masculine kind of elements and astrological elements coming together, it's not a surprise. It's very heated. But there's also this talk about this push forward, like all the things, all the planets are direct at the moment. There's lots of forward momentum, things moving really quickly. So it's almost like we're moving really fast. There's a lot of push and momentum, but as we're moving fast, all this old stuff is kind of coming up, because it's like, well, hey, you can't keep moving forward in this new reality if you're hanging on to all these old things. So it's like, as we're being pushed into our highest evolution. And for me, I've been working a lot with dragon energy to like that higher evolution. And it's the year of the dragon as well. So that's pretty relevant. As we're moving into our highest evolution, hey, there's no room for this stuff. There's no room for this agitation. There's no room for this frustration. So it's like, for me, it feels like the energy feels like my humans being dragged, kicking and screaming to its next evolution, and it doesn't feel ready for it. And so it's like putting its feet in the sand and having a tantrum. That's what the energy of it feels like in my life. And I've seen that. And I'm like, but what about my way of doing it? And like, I can't see how this way that you're guiding me is going to fucking work out to what I want. Right. But it's like a huge leap and I can't see where I'm going, but I just have to trust. So that's what it feels like in my life. A lot of victimhood is coming up to clear. It's been coming up for a long time. For the past 6 months, it's been really present and really clearing, where we're disempowering ourselves, where we're not taking responsibility, where we're giving our power away. Power dynamics really big. Again, that's like a Plutonian thing because Pluto's about power. So that's what I'm feeling in the collective, or that's what I'm feeling personally anyway. Lots of like short fused, agitated, crawling out of my skin kind of energy, like just frustrated for no fucking reason. But I mean, that has been pretty good. Today's especially like charged day, but on the whole, it's been more grounded than it was months ago. But it's definitely, I feel present. I was gonna take a sip of water. Is that resonating with you?
I mean, having these sessions with someone recently where she's been telling me about my human design, and like saying how a lot of the things that I feel are actually from other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm starting to realize like how much I feel the collective.
Yeah.
And there have been days where it feels like there's panic and like the uncertainty of everything that's going on and the fear and everything. And there's this kind of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I've unplugged myself from all like the mainstream stuff, so I don't know how much of that's really being talked about. Like kind of, in some ways, it feels like we're dangling from a thread.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think we feel the insecurity of that.
Yeah, it does feel like an energy of boiling point. We're about to implode. Like that's the energy read I get as well. Like just
There's something coming through for me now, which I want to share.
Mm-hmm.
So recently I was being interviewed for another podcast, and I channeled the Black Dragon of the Rising Rose, and he came through more strongly than I've ever felt him before. And, you know, I'm saying he here, and that's significant because he's part of the Father, and his energy was coming through with so much clarity and peace and protection and holding. And what he was saying was, very few of you have ever actually felt the presence of the Father.
Mm-hmm.
And because you've been raised without it, and your physical father was meant to be a role model for this energy, or to hold the energy and guide you to that energy, which actually exists in you, you've been living in its absence. So he was just shining it forward so that everybody could feel it. And it kept moving me to tears because it was so strong. But I can feel that energy now, and I feel while we're talking about this, it's kind of evoking that kind of sense of instability and chaos. And it's like his energy wants to come forward and hold us in that and say, yeah, okay, you are going through instability and chaos, and you are held by something that is infinitely more powerful than that instability and chaos. And it's right here for you. So it doesn't have to be so overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's true. And also it feels related to what I was saying around the masculine. We're getting an upgrade now, masculine, and how our masculine is, because the highest form of masculine is God, right? It's this father, divine father holding. So I see that. It's like all the places where we've been disconnected from that. For me, it's been really present wherever I've been disconnected from God, and my own internal masculine has been really, really present for me over the past few months. I've talked about this already on the podcast, the initiations I've been going through to bring me back to that support and that holding, because it's chaos and we're going through it and we have to go through it. It's part of the process, and not resisting that chaos is another piece. I've been channeling this book. Oh yeah, really big book. All these codes coming through, and a lot of it's Mayan prophecy. And part of what's been coming up is like the destruction and the chaos, and we need to be willing to face our own death to change form and to turn into something else, right? And that's dark feminine. That's, I mean, it's dark masculine as well, but that destruction, that chaos that we're facing collectively, a lot of people are not willing, and they're like avoiding it, and they're so afraid of it, and that's what's causing this disconnect, because they're running away from it when actually we should be running into it and being like, I welcome this destruction, I welcome this breakdown, I welcome this chaos, because it's divinely orchestrated and it's whole, and through our own unfolding then we can become the next evolution. But it feels like a lot of people are still clinging to that safety blanket of the security in their financial wealth, or whatever it is, the banking system, or like all these things outside of themselves that are bringing them that sense of security that is not true fucking security, and they need to like let go of that. So it's like the inability for people to trust something higher than themselves, which is that father or that God or whatever, that presence of that has your back, that's supporting you. And these things that we're putting our faith and our trust in, they're failing us. And that's bringing up this anxiety of like, fuck, if everything around me collapses, then who am I going to turn to, and how am I going to get through this? And so that's what's kind of, we have to go through it and be willing to go through it, but also knowing that we're not going through it alone, and that there is a higher force.
Thank you for bringing in I feel like you're speaking with the voice of the dark feminine right now, and it's warms my heart. I think it's a really important voice, so I want to take a moment just to honor you for bringing it in, and also that I know that in order to be that energy of the dark transformative goddess in this world at this time is painful. It means going through a lot in your personal life so that you can start speaking this truth into the world. And it's what we need. Like, and as I was hearing you say it, I was thinking, or feeling like the different places in me where I'm attaching onto financial security as some kind of ultimate security, or the security of my body, you know, like instead of my spirit.
This is exactly what I was channeling the other day. And I think I'm actually bringing those codes through of like, this is what the mind's understood. A lot of people, sorry to like railroad, but I was like, no, I need to speak into like specifically this. A lot of people think that they left. They got in spaceships, they left. People have been saying this is what happened to the minds, they left. And I actually, this is really big, and I don't even know if I'm ready to like share this because it's going to come through the book, but I'm being guided to share it. They didn't leave, they changed form. It's ascension. That's what ascension is. But not only did they not leave, they've encoded themselves in the limestone of the pyramids. And so they're still here, but their willingness to change form and be destroyed in the form that they were currently in enabled them to transcend to my whole fucking body is like, whoa, have a whole new level of existence, right? And I think a lot of people, okay, this is coming through. Great, interesting. This is where we're going now. When we talk about this shift into 5D, into the next evolution, I'm seeing so much bullshit about blessed Gaia and the fucking ships are going to come take us and there's going to be no pain and suffering. It's going to be this easy transition into this new place. And to me, that feels like spiritual bypassing. It feels like we're trying to bypass our way through a process which is going to be painful. And it's going to be fucking difficult, and it's going to be messy, and it's going to require us to die. And that might be physically, it might be a physical death, right? And I don't want to speak into like doom and gloom and chaos, because I do believe we have intention into what we create. But the minds weren't afraid of cataclysms. They weren't afraid of being destroyed in that way, because they understood that this human body, this human vessel, is only one aspect of their greatest soul. So in order for us to be okay with potentially facing our obliteration as a human race, it's understanding that our legacy remains in energy, far beyond, and it transcends this physical body. It's really big, and some people are not going to like that, but it's the truth. And that's, I think I see so much of ascension and the 5D, the new earth, all this stuff, and it just feels like fucking spiritual bypassing to me, because it's not really honoring this need for the decay and the destruction and the breaking down. It's like I just get to jump onto this new timeline where there's no problems and I'm living in oblivion, like living with the land and all these things. It's like, yeah, but you need to like excommunicate yourself from the system. You need to go through a messy fucking breaking down of all the parts of you who are still in that system to live that life. I don't know if this is pinging anything for you, but this is what they're wanting me to speak into in this moment.
Yeah, it was just give me 1 second. Yeah, like I can see how the idea of this kind of "we'll be saved" thing could be very appealing to our egos, because it's like, oh, that's our ego gets what our ego has always wanted to get. But the awakening of the planet is going to require us to move beyond that level of consciousness. And I feel like you're pointing more to that, like the breaking down of our egos with or without physical death, which will be necessary to crack open the mind of humanity in order for the divinity that lays within to shine out, which will be that's what we're all headed towards, as I see it. And I feel like there's a lot of confusion, and one of the reasons is because I see it like we're all part of Mother Earth, and she is going through her awakening and moving these like light and dark aspects of herself in these kind of rivers of energy inside of her, and then moving around. And then when we get swept up in one of those, it completely takes over our perspective. So we can get very doom and gloom about things, but then we could get hit with a light wave, and then suddenly everything's completely okay. And I think it's just kind of part of what we need to kind of almost endure at the moment.
Yeah, because it can't be all. Like I've also experienced it being graceful and it being easy and it being magical, and it gets to be that. It does get to be that, and this process does get to be amazing. But we also can't spiritually bypass the breakdowns that need to happen. And I think that's what this panic is that I'm feeling in the collective. It's those who haven't done the work, aren't willing to do the work, being faced with this destruction, and they don't know how to fucking deal with it. Whereas people like you and I, or people who listen to this podcast, maybe they've been going through that destructive process for a really long time and seen that on the other side is a rebirth, right? So they know this drill, like they know that there's more on the other side. It's not like anyone who's ever faced any sort of ego death or upper limit and moved through it knows that on the edge of that leap or that uncertainty or that unknown or that version of you that you're not sure, you got to let go of all this stuff and you don't know if you're still going to be here on the other side of that. It's an up leveling of something better. But these people in the collective, or the unawakened, or whatever the fuck you want to call them, don't know that, and so they're very much clinging to the known. And I think that's what we really feel like. It's like really loud. It's that loud, like the fear of when all this fails, what am I going to do? Like what is left for me when all of this fails? Yeah. So do you have anything else to weigh in there, or are we feeling to move on?
Yeah, I think I guess like whenever I'm in a conversation like this, or sometimes like it's like, okay, we can't control a lot of the things that we're speaking about. Like we can't control the way that other people are thinking and feeling, and we can't control huge things about society, but we can look at the way that we are doing the thing that we're talking about other people doing. And that's like where my mind's going to at the moment. I'm like turning back on myself and I'm going, okay, I can talk, like I've gone through like this kind of death experience, but I know that I'm not over that. Like there are parts of my body that resist death. And I feel like that for myself, like the most fruitful way for me to engage in these kinds of conversations is to just keep going back on myself, just keep looking back at myself and go, okay, this is how I contribute to the collective. By just being really fucking honest with myself about the ways that I cling on to the things that are actually causing me suffering.
Yeah, it's so beautiful, because then we become the illumination as well. Like as we're willing to look on and reflect, we start clearing that from like not just ourselves, but the collective. And that's so beautiful and it's so important. And I think it's so true. Like we can control ourselves. We can't control how other people react, but we can control our part to play. So thank you for speaking into that. It's really powerful. I'm wondering if you have anything to offer. I know you wanted to talk about like divine union to change up the kind of tone. We kind of touched on this briefly, and we did touch on you know, how you're holding a very light masculine energy. When I came into this fully in my fucking dark feminine, I was like, yo, I'm here. Let's burn some shit. But what is divine union to you? And yeah, anything you just want to riff on around divine union, please go ahead, take the mic.
Yeah, my relationship with gender has just changed so much in the last year. Like, where before I was feeling like I was more feminine than masculine. And then met a woman who had been trained by the shamans in Nepal, in different ways of understanding gender, which are much more traditional. But she helped me see that, like, what I thought was my own femininity was really just the feminine flowing through me. And that the reason that there was so much feminine flowing through me was because my masculine was strong. And that I was looking in the wrong direction. Like, I was the riverbed looking at the water flowing through me and saying, I am the water. When she helped me, like, turn my eyes in the other direction and go, oh, hold on a second, I'm the riverbed. And through connecting with her and her being this woman who was able to really shine in her divine feminine, I experienced, you know, these experiences of unity with her, which were just beyond anything that I'd ever experienced before. And it changed the way that I saw myself and who I am, and really awakened this divine masculine inside of myself, which is continuing to grow and awaken. And it's interesting because I now find myself really drawn to being this quite traditional form of masculinity, which I'd really fought against for a long time. But because I've gone through certain spiritual awakenings, like, I can experience the energetic rightness of it for me. And it has just completely changed the way that I see gender in relationships. And I think, given that gender has been such a topic of conversation over recent years, I feel like this different, what to me is different perspective, needs to be brought forward more.
When you say more traditional, firstly, that's beautiful. Actually, I want to just say, I was reflecting as you were saying that. I was like, holy fuck, the amount of divine masculine energy I must have to have my feminine like flow through. And I was like, shit, maybe I don't need higher. I don't need to heal my divine masculine. I just need to recognize that it's so present in me. And I was like, boom, I had this like big light bulb moment of myself being like, fuck, I am the masculine I seek. Yeah, it was like pretty profound. So yeah, so definitely, guys, if you have a lot of feminine energy, look at that. That's beautiful. And the question that I had to ask was, in what ways traditional, and what is the divine masculine to you, and what does traditional masculinity look like? I have my idea of that, but everyone has a different idea.
I think so protecting and providing, like bringing in money and using that money to provide for the women that I love in my life brings me so much joy. Like, so much joy. And when they're actually able to receive that, which is a difficult journey for all of us, but for women to go on, especially for them to be able to relax into that providing, I think it requires working through a huge amount of conditioning and energy, because they've had to hold guard. They've had to be on guard for so long. But what I love now more than anything is being that safe place for the women in my life, and for many clients too, to hold that presence so that they can start to soften. And a good example is that, like, this woman that I'm very close to, and we have this kind of very sweet kind of soul connection, which isn't romantic, but it's very intimate. And I just felt the urge to buy her some flowers and like have them sent to her. And it just, like, my whole heart was just like open the whole time that I was like choosing what to get her and like paying the money for it. And she was just so happy to receive it. Things like that. But to me, that's kind of traditional masculinity, which, you know, I really fought against for a long time, but my body is just like screaming a huge yes to it.
Why do you think you fought against it? Like trauma, not having a dad that, or like having a dad that was very traditional, and so you were like, fuck that, I'm going to rebel against that and be everything that he's not? Or what do you think was the reason?
I was really afraid, really, really afraid of taking responsibility and leading. And I still have some fears around that. But now that I've opened up enough, I have the support of these feminine women who want to see me in that role, and they stand by me. So it was a fear of responsibility that pushed me into my feminine as a way of escaping.
Yeah, I think a lot of men, a lot of Peter Pan men are still in that phase. So it's really beautiful to hear the evolution from that when we claim our response. Actually, not just a lot of men, a lot of women. What am I talking about? A lot of us people, humans have that. Interesting. Let me just feel what wants to come through and where to take this. What do you think the gift of the masculine is, other than, you know, gifting and providing and protecting? What do you think for the collective the gift of the masculine brings?
We're going through a massive, massive energy shift as a collective and as a planet. All of these repressed energies that have been kind of stored away in the glacier of our minds is thawing at a rapid pace. We need strong channels that are going to allow the flowing of that energy through the human psyche to prevent the psyche from splitting under the pressure of all the forces that are moving through it. So that's going to need the alliance of masculine and feminine people so that those energies can move far more efficiently than they have been. And I'm reminded of what someone I met recently was saying about the old ways, and how when basically the high priestesses would be in the middle of the circle and the high priests would be on the outer side of the circle, and the high priests would just hold the space for the women to move the energy. And I feel we're going to need a lot of that. And that's going to require a lot of trust between us. So we need to do the work so that the trust is earned between us and our bonds are strong.
I want to add, like, as a personal, before I know that there's more coming through you, I just want to say this is so fucking true, because for me, that tantric alchemy, or that space holding, or whatever you want to call it, divine union, in those containers, I'm able to move so much more energy. And this is like both times I was in Mexico, I had men that were actually the first time, second time, it was a whole different kettle of fish, and I was very much moving that energy by myself. But the first time I was there, I met a man who was very capable of holding this very safe, very protected container, and it allowed me to drop so much deeper into the trauma that I was clearing there, and just fucking let it all out through me. And it was like, whoa, I was wild. And he was capable of holding it, so it was so safe. And it was like this floodgate opened, right? So it's so true, and it's so required and needed. And I think the women have been doing a lot of this on their own for a long time, so it's necessary. I just wanted to share that that's so true, and I see that. And like, the more masculine energy I have in my life and around me, even in women holding that masculine holding for me, right, I'm able to, as a healer, as a channel, as someone who transmutes and alchemizes stuff, I'm able to access so much more and move so much more, because it's not just on one person, it's not just on one channel. It's like we're doing this together, and that's so beautiful.
I've been noticing it more and more in my life, like how, and I think it's true for many of us, especially when we've been traumatized in family, that we try and do everything ourselves.
Yeah.
We try and be everything for ourselves. And, you know, I've got some really close female friends who are like that. And I see them like having to be in their masculine when that isn't their own personal way, you know, in an ideal situation. And like we have the right to specialize, like to take on a small number of specific roles and those be our roles.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like a small thing, but what I'm saying here actually I think is quite radical, because for us to come together in unified teams where each of us is holding a specialty that is aligned with our nature completely changes our experience of life. It means that we're supported. We get to be who we know we're supposed to be without the pressure of having to be something else, and knowing and trusting the people around us that they will take the slack of the things that we aren't designed to take. Like, imagine how much that improves the energy flow of us as teams, and then the impact that that has on the collective.
Yeah. It's powerful. And I see it as well, how important that is, like, and co-creating, that you have a strength, someone else has a strength, and your strengths together make the larger whole. But like, if that person on the left is like not wanting to play that role because they're afraid that, I don't know, that they need to be doing all the other things that the other person's good at, then they wouldn't be able to come together and like play up those strengths together and accelerate the whole thing. And I'm seeing that actually with my mentor that I've started working with. It's like we fit together in all the ways that, like, she's really good at this thing that I've been mastering the opposite thing, and now we've come together, and it's like I help her with that thing. And, you know, even with partnership, it's like that. And there's different ways in which we dance with other people and meld with them, where we offer like a contrary or a contradictory or a contrasting thing that they don't have. And that's, to me, what co-creation and collaboration is. It's not a bunch of people with the same fucking function coming together being like, let me hold you in the same thing that you're really good at doing. It's like, no, let me help you with your zone of genius, step to the fore and the front with like what it is you're really good at, and then I'll come forward with what I'm really fucking good at, and together we've got the whole thing covered. And I think when we are so hell-bent on doing it all alone, we miss out on that, because we're trying to do all the things rather than do the thing that's we're here to fucking do, and let other people handle that. So I you know, I hear that completely. You're smiling, I feel like you're having some downloads.
So I'm just thinking about my girlfriend and how today she was one of the few people who did come to this event that I put on, and how she had already decided that she was going to help me with my business by doing all my social media stuff, because it just doesn't flow with my energy very well. I've just been feeling so exhausted, like trying to do this stuff, and it just doesn't fit with me. And then she sees that nobody arrives at this thing, and that it was linked to like social media and everything. And then she was just like, I just want to do this for you. And the impact that that had on my nervous system, it was just like, finally, like I can rest. Like I do have help and support, like, and I trust her. And relaxing myself into that and letting go of the parts of me that don't trust, so that my body can kind of magnetize more of that. Like I'm allowed to be helped.
It's that feeling when someone says, I got you in that thing that you really don't want to fucking do, but you feel like you have to. This is exactly what happens anytime I build someone's funnel for them. It's not their zone of genius. Like I serve people like myself and yourself, people in our field. And even, you know, my mentor, we're doing an exchange and I was helping her with her funnel. And you could see when I built out her landing page, I built out her website, I built it all out for her. And it was like everything she wanted to create for herself, but she fucking couldn't. And she kept hitting this wall. And it was like this never ending thing of like, I know it's not my zone of genius and I have to do it. And I think when we're in business, in spiritual business, there's a lot of these things that we're not put here for, right? So it feels really fucking challenging. So to have someone to support you and be like, hey, I've got that thing. It's easy for me. Writing a copy for a landing page and like doing the design and doing the thing, it took me like a couple hours. And I was like, this is actually, it took me quite a few hours because it was a big one, but it was like so easy. I can do that shit in my sleep, right? For someone else, it's so challenging for them. So we all have those skills, and it's like really just understanding what they are and understanding how we can help someone in the way that your girlfriend did. And stepping up and being willing to do that, knowing that you're going to support her in some other way, right? It's like a synergy. Like,
Exactly.
and to me, this is, I feel like we're moving into a time of exchange and co-creation versus like monetary value, right? So for instance, at the moment with this mentor that I'm working with, it's a fucking synergistic, and it's every person I've called in for co-creation over the past 2 years. It's like a yes, and I spoke about this with my friend Brendan on here, but it's like, we're gifting each other. There's a gifting happening, and you're in my energy and you're receiving this. I'm in your energy, you're receiving this. You do this thing for me and I do this thing for you. And it's like all these little pieces fitting together. And it's like by weaving with someone in this way, you're both getting fucking up leveled in a massive way. And there hasn't even been like a financial exchange in that. It's like you're offering or gifting, mutual gifting, right? And bringing things to other people. And I think that's how we're moving forward. Like, if that's the collective that I want to see, and that's the new earth that I want to see, where everyone gifts in their unique way, and then they get gifted in all the ways that they're not gifting, right? And so it's like, in collaborating with these people, you're fundamentally fucking changed because that person's offering you something that you're needing, right? And it's this weaving. So it's the only way I can say it. It was the same when I was working with rewilding. It was very similar. Sabrina and I talked about here on that episode where we spoke about that experience. It was like I was in there to do their copy, but then I was also doing their grid work, and then she was receiving this from me, and but then she was paying me and like I was doing that, so it was like, it was all these ways in which we were unfolding with each other, and it was so much bigger than the one project. Like, I think that's what collaboration and co-creation is going to be, where it's all these little things that are this bigger web weaving between groups, or couples of people, or whatever it is, collaborations, where it's like a bigger unfolding, more magic gets to happen, because it's like people that are so fucking aligned with us in all these ways. And it's like that person has so, like my mentor, I'm like, how the fuck, you're like everything I've been calling in, what the hell? And she's been calling me in, but it's like, if I wasn't honoring who I was, then I wasn't able to call in someone who needed exactly me, right? So it always comes back down to honoring what the fuck you're good at and calling it and standing in that, because eventually it'll gravitate those people towards you. Like, particularly, a lot of people listen to this have spiritual businesses. When you're calling in clients, if you really, really honor and hold the frequency of who you are, clients out there are literally searching for exactly you and all of your gifts and your codex, and specifically what it is that you do. And I've had this experience of like soul clients in the past couple of months, particularly one of my most recent clients. She was like, literally every day, I'm so fucking glad I found you, and it's so amazing to work with you, and I've been searching for you. And there's this feeling of that, right? When we honor who we are and what our gifts are. I'm wondering if you have anything to add there, because you're sitting there smiling, so you like know this.
No, because I've been getting into human design recently, like I was saying, and getting some coaching about it. And like my girlfriend now, like we're just an insane level of compatibility, where it's helped me see how much I have tried to be somebody else to fit in for someone else, and to now experience something that doesn't feel like that at all, where everything that I am just feels like a gift to the other person, and that I don't have to try, I don't have to do anything, and that I'm receiving so much from them just being who they are. Like, it's talked about so often, but it's just so wonderful and clear. And she was saying something about how more conscious people are being called into this now. There's something has shifted recently. So when you were talking about your mentor, I was wondering when that relationship with them began.
Literally, like the past month, it's been unfolding. Like it's amped up. And I was seeing this start to happen mid to late last year. In about August last year, I was seeing this converging of soul tribe and people coming together, and it's like this and this and this and this and this, and oh my god. And then I called in some soulmates in Mexico when I was there, who were like, fucking holy shit, like you accept me for absolutely everything that I am, and it serves you. That I'm like what, this is insane, right? So it started then, but it kind of, for me, it was put on pause while I was going through some really deep personal shit. but then it's kind of like amped up and it's like new level of this previous thing where it's like, holy fuck, we're both crying every day working with each other, like this is so aligned. You know, it's like really beautiful. And the clients I've called in have as well been like this. So it's definitely, it's come back bigger. Like it is like a little, here's a taste of what's going to happen, and then it's like boom, now it's like really like, hello, I'm here, right? So yeah, it's recent. How long have you been in this partnership for?
Just over a month, I would say.
Right. Okay. So it's like
Around that
fresh
time.
in this energy. Absolutely. Yeah. I
It's
do.
like I would, for the New Year's, I like wrote down some manifestations that I wanted, and the first thing on there was my soulmate, and then very soon after that, I think things started moving.
Amazing. Can you tell us, while we're on this topic of soulmates, because I'm still like, where are you, motherfucker? No. Where if you're going through this, you know, I know that obviously and it's fresh, so we don't want to like put any attachment or like future project because that always fucks things up. But for someone who's searching for that, like what sorts of things were you having to move through to get to this point now where you've called in someone who is this perfect mirror and like accepts you in all the ways that you want to be accepted?
So I was saying no to the things that weren't working. Went through some relationships that were beautiful in many ways, but also it showed me the ways that I kind of try and cling to something that isn't good for me. And I had to really go through a lot of pain to start to release that. So actually, if I was going to give somebody advice, it's like, okay, look really honestly at yourself. Like, you are the one who's creating this situation. Like, you're the one who's clinging on to the wrong people and attracting in the wrong people, because you're willing to settle for that. And you know what actually happened was a friend of mine, like he'd been in some really difficult relationships, and then he had found like his perfect partner, and like both of them were talking about how they wouldn't settle for any less than that. And they were talking to me for quite a while, like kind of trying to help me with my relationship stuff, like being like, you need to kind of change the way that you're thinking about this. And it took me kind of spiraling down to the bottom a few times for me to start going like, okay, no, I am actually gonna do what you're talking about. And it's really cliched because it's like, well, that's what people always talk about, right? Like you have to love yourself and you have to not settle for less, but that's what's worked for me.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that. And sometimes that requires some really painful karmic situations to show us, like, hey, here it fucking is. That was me in Mexico, which was like literally, here is the all of the shit. Like, here it is. Are you gonna look at it and like, are you gonna say yes to this? This person loves you, and there's no doubt that there is love there, but you know that this is not meeting you, right? And so it was for me, it was like having the love and still having to choose, no, actually, I desire more than this, which is fucking hard. Like, if you've never felt that level of, it was pretty unconditional. The love was pretty unconditional, right? So to then have to be like, no, I choose something better, right? It's fucking hard. And being like, I might not ever meet anyone, and I might have just turned down my opportunity for love, and still I choose not that, right? It fucked me up. It really did fuck me up, and it was like I still feel like I'm not fully healed from that. So yeah, it's hard, and sometimes we have to go through these experiences to learn to love ourselves. So if you're going through any karmic shit, know that even that is heading you in the right direction. Like there's a gift in it, if you allow that gift to be seen and felt.
Yeah, like honor the pain. I've gone through so many days where I've felt like I was dying, and none of the spiritual tricks and techniques that I've picked up along the way would work. And I just have these days where it's like, okay, I just have to completely go into this. There's no escape anymore. And like stop fighting it. Like really allow yourself to feel all the pain of abandonment and your need for connection. Like just like let it move through your system and stop resisting. That can really help.
Yeah, that was definitely that was what my last relationship was for me. He just like opened the fucking lid to all my unresolved shit, and I was like, guess we're dealing with this now. Thanks, bro. Guess we're gonna have to deal with the like crippling fear of losing someone that I love because I'm going through it, right? But it's true. Like once that's out, it's like, well, I've cleared it. It's out of my body. Like there's no, I felt it. There's no more of it. So, hi, beautiful soul. Allow me to interrupt this broadcast for just a second. If you're a soulpreneur on a sacred mission, or just someone looking to connect with their soul purpose, their gifts, and their multidimensional self, I have something I am so excited to share with you. The Soul Mission Accelerator is possibly my most groundbreaking and expansive work yet. It contains 12 low-cost, high-potency sacred activations that will have you shifting through old limitations, patterns, karmic loops, and blockages at quantum speeds. These activations will support you with everything you require energetically to anchor in the timeline and reality you desire to create, if that means more soul clients, tribe, opportunities, and abundance, or just to anchor a soul purpose that is fulfilling and effortlessly abundant. You can grab $44 off the total price by using the code CRACKEDOPEN in capital letters in the checkout, or grab each activation individually as they call to your soul. Now let's get back to this episode. So just because I'm conscious of time now, is there any other messages you feel to impart or anything coming through for you to share? It doesn't need to be, but if there's anything strongly coming through for you.
I just wanted to say that like I had a challenging relationship with someone last year, then like it was kind of cracking me open in the ways that you were just talking about. And we lost touch for a little while when we were ending things and figuring stuff out. And more recently we've like come back together, and now we're like really close friends and like really love each other and support each other as friends. And you know, even if you're going through some kind of a breakup with one of these kind of karmic pattern kind of people, it can come good in the end.
Yep. Yep. I've had a few of mine on talking on this podcast, so it definitely, I can completely attest to that. Yeah, 100%. I had one really beautiful episode with a man that I had this whole thing with in Costa Rica, and it was so fucking healing. And we had like our dynamic was not only healing each other, it was like a big collective healing. So yeah, I definitely see that. With my most recent ex, I'm not sure. Let's just say I'm not really sure, because we're just very different people. So who knows? But you know, if that's meant to be, it's meant to be. So Jack, thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. It's been amazing to have you here. If there is any if anyone wants to find you, check you out, see what you're about, follow you, how do they do that?
So if they search Jack Morrigan on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, on all of those, soon to be revamped thanks to my girlfriend, and myrisingrose.com is my website, so that's where you can learn about all the different offerings that I have, the channelings that I do.
Amazing. And I'm going to check some of those links down in the show notes, so check them out. So thank you again for being here. Thank you, beautiful souls, for listening. And until next time, I love you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Cracked Open. Don't forget to hit subscribe and share with a friend if this episode has served you in any way. For more information about the work that I do, or to get in touch with me, read the show notes or head to beckmylonas.com. Until next time, beautiful soul.